And then another thing is to look beyond the usual tech companies. So a lot of students, especially at career fairs, the really high-profile technology companies that's often the news are the ones that everyone is applying to work at. And while it's good to apply to work at all those places because you should apply everywhere you want, I think there's a lot of opportunities for HCI and design work beyond the usual places, right? So there may be companies that do retail, logistics, e-commerce, things that are not as directly consumer-facing. There may be government IT agencies. There's a lot of work, within governments. I mean, the government is a gigantic organization, and everything is online and electronic now. There may be contractors who work with the government in various industries. There may be science labs that have a need for design work. There may be nonprofits as well. And I think the big takeaway on the slide is that these HCI and design skills are often in demand. But these sectors can't as easily attract the most experienced designers because they're not on people's radar as much, right? So that, in fact, I think if you get a job at these places, you might actually be able to make a bigger impact because you'll be the first person they hire who knows about the design process, and you might actually be able to really drive things if you're able to work within their organization. Whereas if you're at, say, a really established company with design like Apple, there are hundreds or thousands of designers, and you're playing one small, very fixed role, and you won't get to upturn everything. Also, looking beyond pure design jobs. So this is kind of a survey that was done a few years ago and said that over 90% of these experienced designers said that coding was actually important for the modern design jobs. In 2005, they did a similar survey 10 years ago, and very few people said so. This is an informal survey, but it gives us indication that within just a decade, the ability to write code has just become exponentially more important. The ideal ratio here is that there's one designer for every kind of 5 programmers or people implementing this in code. But in fact, many companies just don't hire that many designers. I mean, the kind of sobering reality is that there are not that many design jobs relative to pure programming jobs. So you might have a 1 to 10, 1 to 20, 1 to 30 ratio. So that means that a good adjacent role is doing what's called front-end development. So that's usually making the user interfaces and the front-end, the user-facing parts of the code, like in a web application or a mobile application. So this is a pure coding job, but you're at least working with user-facing things. One hack you can do is you can build up some design portfolio on the side and learn from the designers on your team, and you might be able to transition more into a design role later. So some people start off, especially those from computer science backgrounds, start off doing front-end, say web development, and then maybe transition in design later. Another kind of note here is that a lot of places still don't value design as much, but everybody values programming because they understand that you need to write the code to ship your product. So if you have these design skills and you work as a programmer, you can actually sneak some of the design thinking in your workplace and maybe have them be more open to design roles in the future. Okay, so in the next few minutes, in the final few minutes, I want to talk about, so what if you can't find a full-time job right away? So, if you're graduating in a tough job market, if you haven't built up as much of the experience as many of your peers, it may be hard to find a role right away. So one idea is you can do freelance or contract design jobs. There are online resources for finding these jobs. You might, again, be able to find these jobs through your personal connections. And the idea is you can make some money from part-time work, which is good, right? So it's good to have money, but it's more importantly is to build up that portfolio and connections. That you just need to build up more portfolio, more connections, so you can launch yourself into the full-time jobs later on. And again, on the bottom here, the employers tend to value these real-world experiences more than kind of pre-made class or school projects. So actually, doing these contract jobs does help you because these are lines on your resume that are real positions you've had. Again, these are personal connections or online postings. Okay, the final I want to end on is, should you go to graduate school? This is a question that many people have. The first kind of graduate school is a master's level degree in HCI or design. So high-level answers are no if you already have a good portfolio and internship. So if you're well-positioned to get a design job out of college, you usually don't need to get a master's. So if you already can get a good job, maybe if you major in something that's really far from HCI and design, maybe that's a good thing to supplement your knowledge. Maybe if you want to teach, so many people who are instructors in design schools or professors of design schools have a MFA, which is a Master's in Fine Arts, or some kind of master's level degree in design. Definitely yes, if you don't have a strong portfolio, if you just haven't built one up. If you didn't specialize in doing HCI and design work in college. And if you can afford tuition and time, right? Master's level degrees, they take money, they take time. And if you want to be a UX researcher doing more research level work, that's usually more geared toward graduate level degrees. Final one is, should you go to graduate school to get a PhD degree in HCI design? These usually take much longer, 5 to 6 years or more. The general consensus is no. So if you're aiming for most design-related jobs you want to get, you probably do not need a PhD level degree for it. So the answer is no for that. You're usually hired at maybe a slightly higher level than a bachelor's or master's level, but you probably are not significantly different. You're using many more years in school. Maybe if you want to be a UX researcher, definitely yes if you want to be a university professor. So if you actually want to teach and do research at the university level, you oftentimes need a PhD. Yes, if you want to be a research scientist, which is actually subtly different than UX researchers. So research scientists are the ones who are doing more of the R&D in science, and usually those are the PhD level roles. Despite these job titles, the research scientists do more open-ended exploratory research work, and the UX researchers kind of do research on the exact product or the exact user population. And yes, if you want to be a data scientist. So the recap here is, if you want to get one of these jobs, build up the portfolio, lean hard on your connections, and get an internship while you're in college. And again, this is what many students and alumni have wished they heard about at the beginning of college. So here are some appendixes that I'll put on the slide. So these are some job hunting related resources. Another appendix here, you don't have to read the slides here, is about PM or product manager jobs, which often people who are interested in design get PM jobs, which are another adjacent roles. There's another career path you can think about going down, and there's some more information here. And here is a summary of the kinds of HCI and design jobs that you can get from your training. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions, but we could let everybody be dismissed, and people can come up here if you have questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much.